Hello, everyone. It's the interview queen, Alicia Tute, and I'd like to welcome you to NotFest exclusive interview with Alexander from Heavy Metal Truants. Welcome back. How are you doing over there?
I'm well delighted to be back. Thank you so much for having us on again.
Of course, it's my absolute pleasure. I know that the last time we spoke was last summer, so we're kind of almost close to, man, a year since having you on for the first time. A lot's on the horizon. So just kind of fill us in with what you've been up to and leading up to this crazy walk, run, and ride to Download Festival.
Oh gosh, well, first off, I got to say thank you so much for the boost that you guys gave us. It was fantastic to be on. We had a bunch of signups to our little cause, which raises money for children's charities. It's Nordoff Roberts Teenage Cancer Trust Childline and Save the Children. They all do unique things to help kids and young people. But we've been going for 10 years, and last year was pretty emotional because we actually crossed the £1 million mark, which was a really big deal for us all. So after 9 years, we broke £1 million, and now we're on our 10th year, and we are at it again, and anyone can join.
What was running through your mind when that number came through and you saw, wow, we actually achieved that, we actually hit that? Because that's a lot of effort on so many different people's parts.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we've had walkers, runners, cyclists over the years, but so many bands, so many people who are behind the scenes in the industry all come together. And it really sounds like the kind of thing you're supposed to say, but to me, it really was proof positive that it is a community. When people say that it isn't, well, I now have over 1 million reasons why they're wrong. And but the second thought is also, well, where do we go from here? Because you don't feel like you're crossing a finish line. You feel like, well, to be honest, we're just beginning. That's why we want people to sign up to join us and to help us get to not 2 million, but to 10 million, which is our next target.
Absolutely. And the beauty is once you see that proof and the love and just the support from so many people, you know that 10 million is tangible. It's just a matter of time. So that's really exciting in itself.
Indeed. Well, I think it's really good advice for dream big, just always dream big. And, that's why, where I'm sat at today is the headquarters of Iron Maiden. I co-founded the Heavy Metal Truants with Rod, who was the manager of Maiden. They are no strangers to doing it large. And I really kind of think that it's the belief of people like that in this community, in the ability of fans to kind of give back in that way, that I think has powered all of this. We don't just do cycle rides or runs or walks, what have you. We do auctions, we do all kinds of activities. And it's just in this space. We never get mainstream coverage. We never get anything. We get the support of, great friends like NodFest and so on. And that's what makes all the difference. Is people kind of pulling together and saying, you know what, this is good. Let's back it.
That's absolutely incredible. I'm really envious of where you're at right now. It's just the wall behind you in itself. I can only imagine the history of looking around and seeing everything.
Yeah, well, it's not bad. I mean, a little shout out. I mean, just like, one of my day jobs is running the Iron Maiden fan club. And I think it's going back 40 years, just one of the oldest communities there are. And I think, again, it all just stems back to that feeling of family, the feeling that, you know what, I can see someone who might need a bit of a push. I'm going to give them $10. I'll give them $100 or whatever else. And, I think that it's just that support that resulted not just in the money that we've raised to support these kids' charities, but also this incredible sense of goodwill around the music, which I'm sure, as you know, better than anyone, it often gets a bad rap, with the press and so on. You don't usually hear the positive stories in the headlines. It's always the negative ones. And so I think stuff like this can change people's minds about what we're all about.
Now you're definitely shining a light in a very positive way. So that's lovely to see. And of course, we're getting so close to the festival now. So how is the preparation for everything? And how do you really prepare for such a cool trek like this one?
Yeah, well, gosh, if you're doing the physical ride with us here in England, you're cycling for 180 miles between London and Download Festival. Which is, we get biblical weather every now and then, but that kind of makes it more of an adventure. And we've had everyone from Biff from Saxon, Aaron from Paradise Lost, loads of people join us. And the weirdest thing is they're always smiling. No matter how bad it gets or how tough it gets, they're always smiling because it's kind of like being a kid again. It's a real adventure.
Right.
And I think that's true for the people that join us virtually as well. We've had people join us from Taiwan, from Peru, obviously from the States, and they can join us virtually and get the miles in and raise the money the same way like everyone else. And I think that's where you know, I don't want to say there's a positive story about the pandemic, of course not. But one thing that came out of the pandemic was we discovered that we could be bigger than we ever had been before by doing it virtually and by bringing people in, and that's what we're able to do. And we had our biggest year ever as a consequence.
It really is about those silver linings. I feel like we all went through so much over the last 2 years, but the fact that you can't really change things going on, but you can adapt to them and try to make them better in your favor, that was really cool to see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, and you know, it was a big worry when we did our first virtual one during conditions of lockdown here in the UK, and it was like, gosh, it seems like the world is on fire. Does anyone have anything to give? You know, aren't we all just completely tapped out? The truth was, it was our biggest year. They gave more than ever. So to me, that's just testament to just, well, you know, the human spirit, but also just people's limitless generosity, because not only were they able to give, but they absolutely smashed it out of the park. And so we reached £1 million, not in 10 years, but in 9.
That's amazing. And one of the things that I thought was very cool last time is when you phoned in, we were doing our interview, you were actually on that trek. You were heading over to the festival. And as we had mentioned, the organization has been around for close to 10 years. So how many of these have you personally done? Have you gone out there every single year?
I've done every single year. You know,
Amazing.
even last year when Download Festival, you know, on the hallowed grounds of Donington, you know, it's just inseparable from the history of heavy metal. We went to the pilot event that they did, you know, just as they were beginning to come out of lockdown and experiment. Can we have festivals again? We did a little guerrilla ride up there, and so yeah, so it's 10 years of doing this continuously, and a lot of other activities, and we made so many friends around the world. But then, you know, you go to a cancer ward where kids are getting support of a place like, you know, Teenage Cancer Trust. And that's what motivates you. You know, it's just when you hear stories about kids with autism who learn how to communicate with the aid of music therapy, or, you know, in a very timely sense, you know, kids who are on the border between Poland and Ukraine who are getting support from Save the Children, that's incredibly motivating. They're the people that are doing the real work. All we do is raise money and try to support them. And when you hear stories like that, you have no choice but to go and do it. So,
Of
so this is
course.
a thing. This is for life for most of us. Most people join, but they don't really check out because it's it's just too special, I think, for everyone that joins. So I hope people will join us if they see this, because if they're doubting whether they can do it, I tell you, if I can do it, they can do it.
Oh, that's really incredible to hear. I want to get over there at some point. I've never been to the UK yet, but it's coming up, fingers crossed soon. I'd love to be a part of one of these because you're right. Anytime I see a photo being posted or people tagging you in stories, they're always smiling. And it looks like the other thing too is they get to kind of explore and come across random cool spots that you wouldn't be able to pull aside and see if you were just driving from place to place. So I'd love to know about some of the cool spots you've discovered while riding around, whether just something that's scenery or a restaurant you came across. It could be anything.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, we have all kinds of you know, landmarks that we pass. I mean, just like, you know, railroad tracks where the great train robbery happened, or you know, other just, you know, tiny villages. I mean, the journey from London to Donington is a little spiritual, you know, because the history that that site has for, you know, heavy metal festivals. It just goes along with the actual history of the music, right? And so it's not really the big places. It's just when you get closer and closer and you see Castle Donington off in the distance, it's always emotional. I never fail to get a little teary eyed whenever we're there. Well, number one, because it means the adventure is nearing an end. But number two, because I can't believe that we managed to do it another year. And sometimes the weather, the wind, everything is just
It's a
completely
lot.
against us. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's a lot to do. But then we get stories from people all around the world, you know, who do it virtually, and they all have their little adventures, you know, things going wrong and persevering. And so it's not just about the money, it's also about people choosing to do something bigger than themselves, you know, to kind of step outside of themselves. That's why we call it heavy metal truants, because truancy is the idea of, you know, doing one thing when you're supposed to be doing another. So everybody is cutting class, or they are taking days off of work, or they're kind of getting up extra early or staying up late in order to get these miles in. It's a small sacrifice, but there's also an incredibly rewarding adventure that comes from it as well.
It's fun because I feel like a lot of people could have different goals and different outlooks on the whole thing, but I feel like two that really tie people together is of course raising money for these great charities, but also just the love of heavy metal. So who were those first bands who got you into the world of heavy metal?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I'm going to show my age, obviously, but I guess the grays probably go again. Yeah, it's just my older sister. They had Twisted and AC/DC. My brother was massively into Scorpions.
Nice.
For me, my first genuine love affair, because it was my discovery, yeah, was unquestionably Iron Maiden. You know, swiftly followed by Metallica, Anthrax, and then I got into the heavier stuff like Sepultura and all that because, well, I'm 45 years old, and so it was probably around the late 80s and early 90s that I really discovered the power of the riff and so on. And then you begin doing archaeology. You start going backwards as well as forward. So it's not just new bands, but then you discover Black Sabbath, and it's just like your world changes.
Mind's blown.
Indeed, indeed. But I've never lost the love, and I think that the fact that this is connected with the music, it's not just fundraising, but it's also in the name of this music. I think is a big enticement for people as well. It certainly is for me because it makes a positive statement about who listens to it.
What I enjoy is a lot of the bands that you mentioned there have actually performed at Download. So the last thing I would like to ask you about tonight is kind of that end prize for everybody who is taking part in this trek. Who is the band that you're most hyped about to see perform this year?
Well, look, I mean, it's not just because I'm at their headquarters, but I have to say, seeing Iron Maiden headline the Saturday night at Download Festival is going to be a pretty big deal. The moment that Bruce comes out and says "Scream for me, Donington," I think we're all just going to completely lose our minds. And it's not just because of the band or what they signify at Donington. It's because Rod, the manager, is the co-founder. Bruce actually came along on our virtual ride last year. And also all of these fans, whatever they're fans of, whichever bands, we've all been denied this unique and magical experience of going to festivals for so long now. So I think that going back to Download, that'll be my first big festival, is going to be emotional because it's just like, gosh, we're home again. And I think we all missed it a great deal. And so I'm just kind of hoping that we all just breathe a sigh of relief and hopefully never take it for granted again.
Oh, those are like the most beautiful parting words we could have had. And I feel like it's so fitting that the first big festival back for you is, of course, this one, riding off of Heavy Metal Truants. So, Alexander, just thank you so much for taking the time for catching up with me here on Knotfest. It's been an absolute pleasure.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you for all of your support.
Of course, to everybody watching, this has been Alexander from Heavy Metal Truants. If you would like to know more about the cause, all you have to do is head on over to knotfest.com for more details. And of course, we will see you next time right here. Until then.
Thank you so much, Alicia.